Welcome, everybody, to the flash launch for the August issue of the South Florida Poetry Journal. And my name is Francine Witte, we have a wonderful group of readers tonight from the August issue. Doing the tech for the Zoom is Mike Mac and O'Mara. Did I get that right? Okay. Our wonderful editor. So I'm going to start. I'm going to just warm up the room with a little 100-word piece. Sort of a, I like to think of it as an amuse-bouche. You know, those of you who are foodies know that that's a little something to titillate your palate, right? So this is a 100-word story. This is from 100-word stories. It's called Jigsaw Puzzle by Roberta Beery. When someone said, "I saw your husband eating out with another woman," he said, "She's a colleague," and I believed him. When someone said, "I saw your husband holding hands," he said, it wasn't him. When someone said, "I saw your husband in a baby store," he said, "Now you're just being irrational, talking like a crazy woman." And I believed him. When my husband said, "We're in love and she's pregnant," I didn't believe him until they said, "I told you so." And my fingers fit the last two pieces of the jigsaw into place. That's Roberta Beery in 100-word stories. It's nice. What I kind of liked about that story was the structure, you know, the repetition of when, you know, each time it escalates a little bit more. So I think a lot of times Flash is not only storyline, of course that's important, but structure, you know, how is it presented? You know what I mean? There's like 100 ways probably to do that, but repetition is certainly a good one, or anaphora. Thank you. Yes, anaphora. Thank you, David Galef. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to get to the readers who are here. First, we're going to hear from Sesling, and I have all your bios, by the way. Poet Laureate of Brookline, Mass, 2017 to 2020, Sesling has published numerous poems in flash fiction. He edits Muddy River Poetry Review, which is a great journal. He authored 4 books of poetry, 3 poetry chapbooks, and 1 book of flash fiction. The Secret Behind the Gate, Revenaugh Barva Press, which is a wonderful press in Boston, which is forthcoming. He has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize 5 times, and his books have been nominated for national and local awards. He lives in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, with his wife, Susan J. Decter. Sesling.
There you go. I unmuted it. Thank you very much, Francine. And I would like to add to that I also edit the 10 by 10 flash fiction stories, which Francine has been in, and Brad and Scotty and David also have been in, and I'm looking forward to getting more stories from all of you. Anyway, my short microfiction flash fiction is called Road Story and starts. Rick Roberts is a careful driver, never exceeds the speed limit, stays in the middle lane, passes on the left, always uses turn signals. So this day on the Massachusetts Turnpike, as he approached Charlton heading west toward Albany, there are 2 53-foot tractor trailers in front of him. One in the left lane where it is prohibited from driving, and one in the right lane. Both trucks are doing about 10 miles under the speed limit of 65. Rick is in a hurry to reach Albany So despite his better judgment, he pushes the gas pedal and tries to get ahead of them. As he starts to enter the space between the two, the truck on the left signals right, the one on the right signals left. Frightened, Rick quickly calculates that he cannot get past the two trucks before he is crushed between them. His choice is to slam on the brakes, which he does. The state police car traveling behind him crashes into the back of his car. He says, "Thank you."
Thank you very much, Spee Sesling. And yes, I apologize for not mentioning 10 by 10. It's a great new journal, and Spee's been able to get some really great people in there. And so, you know, and feel free to use the chat to promote your journals, your upcoming, you know, your links, whatever. That's what it's there for. Or if you just want to say, "Hey, I liked what you just read," you know, that's nice too. Okay, it always makes people feel really good. Okay, next up is Celesté Cosme. I hope I'm saying that right. Teaches high school English in New Jersey. God bless you. I was a high school teacher in New York City for 20 years. She received her MFA from Rosemont College. She is the CNF, Creative Nonfiction Editor at Philadelphia Stories. Her work appears or is forthcoming in Pangyris, South Florida Poetry Journal, Macro Mike, and Scapegoat Review. You can follow her on Twitter at Celeste Maria or read her works on celestecosme.com. And again, feel free to put that in the chat. Ladies and gentlemen, Celesté Cosme.
Thank you, Francine. So I'm going to read the Counterpoint Flash that was just published in South Florida Poetry Journal first, and it's called On the Trail of You. They press the fugitive's filthy shirt to the animal's nose until the dog begins to bellow, signaling that he has entered the chase. Gripping tightly to the leash, the handler is prepared to follow the bloodhound wherever the scent may lead. This man trusts the dog implicitly, remembering all the times people said that the trail had gone cold, but his tracker found the quarry. The early dew enhances the scent of the trail. In the mornings, we would share our dreams over coffee while we sat together on the porch. You were able to fly in most of your dreams. I was often lost or trapped in mine. Without fail, you'd comment on the wind chime hanging from the awning, the one you bought that one time we went on vacation. You said it would be like bringing the island home with us. Many of the strings are now so worn that they've lost their metal tubes, and it no longer sounds like music when the wind blows. The hound has been hunting for hours, and the followers are growing anxious. A storm is coming. The handler remains confident, knowing his dog can sleuth out the footpath even in rain. It's the wind everyone should be nervous about. The gusts spread the scent, and the bloodhound makes a few wrong turns. He looks to his leash holder, wondering if the man knows where to go next. The pair, along with everyone else, desperately following at their heels, walk in large circles until the bloodhound abruptly picks up his head and runs off in the right direction. On our refrigerator is the photo you took, that time we got lost in the city. Instead of using our cell phones as a guide, you convinced me to trust you as the navigator. How hard could it be to get to a restaurant half a mile away? 90 minutes later, we asked one of the street vendors to help us. Much to your dismay and my growing frustration, the guide told us that the restaurant closed last year. That was your pick, remember? You laughed louder than I had heard in a while and begged the guy to take a photo with us. You and he share a sincere grin while my expression conveys complete exasperation. How many times did I try and take the picture down or bury it behind a bill, only to come face to face with it again when refilling my glass with ice? Yesterday, I pressed my ear to it, hoping to catch echoes. The hunt has gone on for days. Many of the team have lost all hope of finding the runaway, but the handler knows that his hound is stubborn and willful. The animal's biology allows him to dismiss all other odors until his intended is found. The man and his tracker continue on their course. Our bed remains divided into your side and my side. Your tower of pillows rests largely untouched, a monument to where you once laid your body near mine. When we were first dating, you held me as long as I'd let you, which was just until you fell asleep, and I felt your warm breath on my neck. I'd nudge you away, unable to truly sleep with your heavy arm across my body. I've added another blanket to make up for the loss of your warmth. In the middle of the night, going on the 10th day of the pursuit, the bloodhound finally catches up to the fugitive. The arrest is quickly made, the handler is heartily thanked, and the dog is affectionately nuzzled. The animal's desire to find his prey is quelled, and he can let go of the smell that took him so far. People say that it will get easier every day, but I can still feel you here with me, though you've been gone for months. What must I do to be rid of the grief? Take down the pictures from the walls, part with the letters in the drawer, cast aside your sweaters in the closet. I'm afraid your tracks in my life cannot be covered, and that I'll never be rid of your scent. The second piece I'm going to quickly read is a one-scene flash that was published earlier this spring in a new magazine called Sunflowers at Midnight, and it's titled, "This is Their Sunday Morning." "It's happened again," Eva whispered as her husband held up the covers so that she could slide back into bed. She laid her head on his chest and gripped his shirt. Darren didn't need to ask what Eva meant. She'd been in the bathroom for a while, and she was about this far along the last time. He stretched his arm down and embraced his wife. He waited to feel her body quiver with sobs as it had after the first 2 times. Instead, Eva lay very still, though he could feel his shirt becoming wet with her silent tears. Darren held his wife tighter as he gratefully remembered they'd told no one she was pregnant this time. The first time they had told everyone and checked in on Facebook for every doctor's visit. The second time they'd only told her mother. This time, they agreed they wouldn't tell anyone until she passed the 20-week mark. Today was to begin week 8. Eva had shown him her pregnancy app last night. "This week, your baby is the size of a raspberry." Eva didn't move to look up at Darren, but softly spoke. "I think I'm done. I want to be done." Darren didn't move or pull her up to meet his eye. He knew he had said everything worth saying after the first 2 miscarriages. He'd promised her that he didn't need a child to bear his name in order to be happy. Eva finally released her hold on his shirt and began to wipe her eyes. She used her other hand to prop herself up and look down at him. "Is it okay if we stop trying? I know you'll say yes, but I need to know that you won't resent me for giving up, or that you won't think I'm weak for quitting." She wiped the remnants of a tear from her chin. "I need to know that you won't regret choosing me, who has nothing to offer but an empty womb." More of the sun made its way through their closed blinds. Darren reached up and traced Eva's cheekbone before tucking a brown curl behind her ear. 3 times he had wondered what their child might look like, and each time he prayed that they would be almost just like his wife. If there was one aspect of never having a child with Eva that was heartbreaking, it was that there would be no miniature face of hers that he could fall in love with all over again. Darren sat up and they shifted around in the bed so that they were both upright and facing each other with very little space between. He pressed Eva's palms to his face as if to warm himself and turned to the right to kiss her hand. He knew that the last 22 months had been hard on both of them. The stressful cycle of hope, loss, and recovery, having now repeated itself a 3rd time, had almost exhausted their reserves. Now 3 baby ghosts haunted the bedroom next to theirs, and Darren suddenly became afraid of Eva one day longing to join them. "Remember what you told me?" Darren had finally decided how to reply. "When we were first dating, about how you loved taking photos when you were a kid and how you used to steal your mom's camera all the time and take it to school." Eva's face relaxed and she smiled a bit. Yes, and she'd wonder how she used up all the rolls of film so fast until she got them developed and saw most of them were pictures of my friends. Her husband grinned. Well, what if we make the room next door into a dark room? You know, fix it all up with special equipment. You still have a couple of old cameras saved in that box downstairs. He started to get up. Wait here. I'll bring up the box and we can look through it together. Maybe I can get you some film and some other things later. Eva watched Darren leave the room. She understood this was his way of showing her that they could move on. She imagined herself in that dark room, alone with the negatives, waiting for the images to appear. And surely they would develop, wouldn't they? Thanks.
Thank you, Celeste Cosme. Am I saying that right, Cosme?
It's Cosme, but that's okay.
Cosme, okay. That was beautiful. And in both cases, you had those really killer last lines, you know? Very nice. Just like Zvi's last line was a real killer too. Literally a killer, but yeah. I think that's really important in Flash. And that's something that I always look for, you know? Something I try to include in my own stories is a good last line. Really, you know, like something that you take with you, the reader takes with them. So very nice job, Celeste Cosme. Cosme. All right, next up is Kevin Howley. He's a writer and educator based in Bloomington, Indiana. Kevin Howley.
I'd like to thank everybody for this. I'm an academic writer and I'm new to fiction, and I'm delighted to have my work appear in your journal. So thanks for that. And if it's possible, I want to read what I wrote for this issue, and then I've got a short piece, if it's okay, that is currently out to a couple other places. But I'll read the piece that appears.
Yes,
thank you. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those, I like prompts. In my teaching, I like prompts, and in my writing, I like prompts. And this came from a contest. I didn't get into that particular journal, but I got into this one. So, and I appreciate that. And I was trying to work a little bit with the notion of a triptych. Father and son. Apprehension. Father and son sit in stony silence. As the battered F-150 cuts through the early morning fog, Jesse considers his father's eyes in the rearview mirror. Ronnie meets the boy's gaze with the back of his swollen hand. Lighting up his last smoke, Ronnie mutters something about there's sure to be another call from the school nurse. Jesse wipes the teary snot on his sleeve, then turns to search his assailant's eyes as never before. There, in those remorseless orbs bloodshot with foreboding and despair, the young boy takes full measure of the violent ways of his father's world. Harbinger. The teacher grips Jesse's shoulder and ushers the boy out of the classroom. Walking down the hallway, several paces behind the therapist, he brushes a hand along cold marble walls. Jesse climbs into his seat, picks up his crayons, and begins his work. Another house ablaze with angular figures, all red, orange, and black. The F-150 pulls up as the therapist escorts Jesse to the curb, her reassuring farewell stifled by the diesel engine's infernal rumbling. Ronnie takes a slug of whiskey and puts the half-empty bottle inside the glove compartment, atop the semi-automatic pistol. Descent. Jesse grabs the keys and stuffs Ronnie's last $37 into his pocket. In the basement, he finds 2 boxes of ammo on a shelf alongside his grandfather's hunting knives, a 5-gallon can of kerosene, and a pair of rusty lanterns. On his way down the mountain, half a dozen police cruisers scream past the F-150 heading into town. When they break down the door, sheriff's deputies snort at the comical look of disbelief on Ronnie's inert face. Jesse pulls into the school parking lot. tucks the pistol in his waistband, and waits for the first period bell. Can I try that second one? Another prompt, another journal, devoted to summer. And I'm thinking a lot about what's going on in this country. Easy mark. You are a proud American, a family man. You have a wife and 2 grown children with kids of their own. You're not as young as you used to be. The farm has been in your family for 3 generations. Now that it's gone, you're leaving the only home you've ever known. Your father voted for Jimmy Carter in 1976, the first and last time he voted Democrat. You remember how agitated Granddaddy got whenever he talked about Democrats, how they sold out farmers when they spurned Henry Wallace as FDR's 1944 running mate. You cast your first vote for president in 1980. To this day, you are a Reagan Republican. You're not a praying man, but you believe in God, a white Christian God. At Sunday service, your pastor condemns abortion. It is a sin against the laws of God and man, he proclaims. It's like he's talking to you, and you alone. You try not to think about it. Back in high school, you and Sheila took long rides out on Highway 40. Fields teeming with the incandescent wonder of 100,000 fireflies seducing themselves on warm summer nights. Sheila left town early for her first semester at college. You never saw her again. These days, you get your kicks rolling coal across 4 counties. Sometimes you're driving that truck till all hours. Late night talk radio provides the soundtrack, gives you something else to think about. You enjoy watching Friday Night Lights with the grandchildren. Television sure has changed since you were a kid, but it's something you can do with the family without breaking the bank. You cash a check at the spinning wheel, and after a couple of beers, you pick up a frozen pizza at the corner fast stop. By the time you get home, you're a fucking hero. After the election was stolen, you outfitted the truck with MAGA flags and "Don't Tread on Me" license plates. One moonlit night, just before Christmas, you're rolling coal and tuned to InfoWars. Where were you when history called? Where were you when your children's destiny and future was on the line? Alex Jones wants to know. That's when you decide to drive to DC for the rally. You take a plea deal. Otherwise, your lawyer says, you're looking at prison time. You sold the truck, but legal fees wiped out what little savings you had. Now you're a second shift custodian at Prairie Central High and working part-time at Walmart. You ignored not 1, but 2 impeachment trials. This summer, you watched the hearings on a Capitol insurrection with an odd detachment, numb to all that's happened to you and your family, repulsed by the deceit, treachery, and betrayal that conjured the maelstrom. The whirlwind that drove you from your home, put you in debt, landed you in jail. One day soon, with the help of your God, you will come to realize that you've been had. Thank you.
Wonderful. Very powerful stuff. Kevin Howley. Come again. It's great. It's really exciting to hear the stories being read, you know, by the writer. It's like really fun, you know. Make sure you're looking in the chat, like you're getting some nice comments, people who have read. So next we're going to hear from Nikki Revenaugh, and then after Candace Hartsuyker, and after that David Galef, just so you have a little bit of, you know, warning. Okay, Nikki Revenaugh. is a fiction and nonfiction writer whose work has appeared in Vice, Kajibi, Cleaver, Chautauqua, and Catapult, among others. She was a semifinalist for the American Short Fiction Prize and a finalist for the Diana Woods Memorial Award in Creative Nonfiction and the Penelope Niven Award at the Center for Women Writers. She holds an MFA from Bennington College, a BA in American Studies from Yale University, and an MBA from NYU. Ms. Revenaugh lives and works in Brooklyn, New York. Oh, you're right next to me. I'm in Manhattan.
Oh, waving across the river at you.
Yes. Nikki Revenaugh.
Right.
Take it
So
away.
thanks. I'm going to start with reading the short piece that was published in SoFloPoJo, which I love saying out loud as many times as possible. And this was also based on a prompt, a postcard prompt in this case, called Upside Down House. We were going to drive straight through from Jacksonville all the way to the last key, Frankie and me. Rented vintage convertible, top down, six-pack at his feet and me behind the wheel. Dizzy with mileage and no-dos. Punk road trippers, too cool to be tourists. The hurricane warning started somewhere around sunrise, and we changed the radio station. But before long, we hit a detour manned by Florida State troopers, directing us inland. We planned to drive west for a bit and then double back southeast, back to the chopped up Atlantic coast, back into the storm. But then we saw the billboard, "Don't miss the world's only upside down house," 5 miles ahead. We looked at each other. "Fucking close enough," Frankie said. So we gunned our oxblood Studebaker and did not look back at the black clouds massing behind us. And then with your indulgence, I'd like to read one other really super short piece called Sentence, which is a single sentence. That helicopter is back, closer this time, loud enough that I can hear it over the clanky hum of the swamp cooler I installed specifically to mask outside sounds. Even though back when I chose this room at the top of the building for my last stand and persuaded them, okay, bribed them, paid them triple up front and all in cash, everyone trying for one more win before it was all over. When I got them to punch big holes in the walls for bulletproof picture windows, the old insulation drifting down 5 stories into the abandoned playground like tainted pink snow, and replaced the tired tar roof with triple insulated plexiglass, they swore the whole thing would be soundproof, as impervious to noise as it was to weather and fire and whatever else. A solarium bunker. Even back then, I knew the end was rumbling inexorably nearer, a fact that was confirmed when the work crew just stopped showing up one day. Their abandoned tools, a caulk gun, a level, a cordless drill with a broken bit, as bereft in an unfinished corner as the contractor's useless voicemail message when I tried to ring him. His, "We're sorry, but given the circumstances, we can't take on any new fortification jobs. Have a nice day and hang in," cut off by a robot voice saying the voicemail box is full. The cell phone subscriber is out of range. Service is no longer available. And now, when the oblong darkness slides across the floor and stays there, I know without looking up from the enveloping thrum that it's the chopper, its prop shadow flickering round and round like the ghost of a ceiling fan on the old Killam rug I dragged up here to double as floor cover and bedding. And when I finally force myself to tip my head back, I can see the vibrant boot soles of the guy they're sending down the rope toward me. And I wonder in the bright, cool cacophony, which will make a more persuasive weapon in my hands when he lands, the caulk gun or the drill.
Beautiful. And did you say that that was one sentence?
One sentence, yeah, with a few semicolons and a lot of dashes, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like, that was great. There's such an energy to the one sentence piece, right? It's just, it just keeps going and building, which yours really did. Beautiful. Thank you very much, Nikki Revenaugh. Okay, next, we're going to hear from Candace Hartsuyker. I hope I said that right. Who I really know a lot from Twitter. It's just, Candace is always very, very generous about commenting and liking on my stories. So nice to meet her in person. here, you know, as much as in person as this is. Candace Hartsuyker has an MFA in creative writing from McNeese State University. She's been published in Fiction Southeast, Cheap Pop, OK Donkey, and elsewhere. Candace Hartsuyker.
Thanks, I'm glad to be here. So I'm going to read a flash fiction published in the August issue, and it's called When the Opera Star Sings. The retired opera star does not sit in a dressing room with women pressed around her, sweeping rouge and powder on her cheekbones, vermilion lipstick giving her lips the illusion of a Cupid's bow. Her neck is not weighed down by strings of pearls. Her head does not pound from a wig, coarse curls brushing the tips of her shoulders. She does not have to stand statue still while the costume designer, measuring tape in hand, tucks in a piece of fabric, making last-minute alterations before the dress rehearsal officially begins. The audience does not sit squashed together in velvet-backed chairs, fidgeting, rifling through programs, or sitting primly, hands folded, waiting for the lights to dim and the curtains to part. There is no set design to marvel at, no trellises or towers, balconies or windows, no Corinthian columns. On stage, women resplendent as butterflies in colorful dresses do not float around each other with mincing steps. No one in a balcony seat takes their opera glasses out of a plush-lined pouch, craning their necks to get a better view. She does not perform in Carmen, Tosca, La Traviata, or La Boheme. There is no antagonist in her life, not herself, not a flesh and blood lover, not a stage paramour. She no longer has to be dissatisfied with life to fall in love with the man she has been forbidden to see. She does not have to die clasped in her lover's arms, or worse, watch him die while she looks on. She does not have to wake up each day and remind herself that with this gift she has been given should not be squandered. She does not have to tell herself that death is the only song she knows. There is no reason for her to keep practicing, to still sing, yet she does. When the opera star sings, her mouth in a trembling O, her eyes glistening with tears, arms outstretched, there is no one to clap, to cry, bravo, mademoiselle, bravo. Yet every day, as dawn begins to blush the sky, she sings louder and louder, anticipating the audience's unending applause. If she looks closely, she can see it, long-stemmed flowers thrown from their hands, her stage a sea of rose petals, a carpet of pale pink, scarlet, and gold.
Thank you, Candace Hartsuyker. That was wonderful. I just want to give a little bit of a shout out to some of the other SoFloPoJo staff here tonight, Judy Ireland and Stacy Kiner, who I think Stacy's the essays editor, and I think Judy is poetry and possibly reviews. So welcome and thank you for being here. Yeah, working with SoFlo has just been such a wonderful experience for me. I love Flash, and then to just be able to read it and curate it, and it's just been terrific. So so nice group of people to work with. Okay, next we're going to hear from David Galef, and then after David, I just want to give people a little bit of a heads up. I'm going to read something from Lynn Mundell, who's not here, but Brianna Summer, and then I'm going to read something for Robert Scotellaro, and then Edie Meade. Okay, so David Galef has published short fiction in the collection Laugh Track and My Date with a Neanderthal Woman from Sank Short Story Collection Prize. Long fiction in the novels Flesh-Turning Japanese and How to Cope with Suburban Stress, Kirkus Best Books of 2006, and a lot in between. His latest is Brevity, a flash fiction handbook from Columbia University Press. Day job, professor of English and creative writing program director at Montclair State University. So just a little side deal that he has there. He's also the editor-in-chief at Vestal Review. And I had the pleasure of sitting on a panel with David that David had put together at this year's AWP, which was just wonderful. It was called Five Writers Walk Into a Bar, using humor in Flash. And it was wonderful. And David was just such a great captain for that. So everyone, please welcome David Galef. You're on mute. You have to unmute. You're still muted for some reason.
How about now? Is that better?
Yes. Good.
Okay. First of all, let me just say that Francine was pretty darn good too. She's a pro. She delivers. Briefly, also that I do edit Vestal Review. It's David Galef, by the way, but everyone mispronounces it. So yeah, I edit Vestal Review. It's the longest running flash fiction magazine on the planet. I encourage people to submit. We get back to people in a timely fashion. We do other things too, but that's often of paramount importance. Any event, briefly, I'm just going to read briefly the two micros that appeared in SoFloPoJo. I also like saying that name. And the first one is called 15 More Minutes of Fame in New York City. Obviously a glancing reference to that Andy Warhol quotation, in the future, everyone will be famous for 15 minutes. I think that has to do with the internet, which he first saw. All right, so here it is. 15 more minutes of fame in New York City. After 7 years of marriage, we should be resigned to who we are, but here's our latest. In public places, one of us pretends the other is famous. So we'll walk separately into Fincke Coffee, and I'll gawk at her. Wow, you're in that Netflix series, aren't you? The one with the triple identities? Or we'll hit Hudson Yards, and outside Athleta, she'll gape at me. God, you look just like your Insta picture. So damn young. Hard to believe you're the third richest guy in America. Or maybe we're just waiting for the light at Hudson and 14th, and I can't believe who's standing next to me. Don't mean to be rude, but I can't. What was it like for a woman to save 10 GIs in Lashkar? Whoever's recognized stays cool, but the other keeps at it. Our voices grow loud as sirens. Need I say what a turn on it is? To answer your question, sure, we've gotten physical. Great if we can get some bystander involvement too, and a crowd will believe anything. Last time someone called the cops, but the police were super nice about it. And after we explained everything, they still wanted my autograph. That's the first one. The second one is equally short. It's called DIY, do it yourself, DIY in the 1950s, because though it contains a certain riff on the word fix, it struck me as a rather perhaps not too enlightened 50s mentality. He says, I try to fix the wrong things, like dinner or our son's untied shoelaces. Says I should focus on social injustice or the Cold War. I say, dinner's something I can fix this evening. Society takes longer. Come to that, I say, why don't you fix up the house? Paint so pale looks like onion skin. I spend all day at work, he says. If I didn't, we'd all be in a fix. I say, fine, but money ain't gonna fix our problems, not with the fix we're in. Anyways, I say, didn't you tell me you're having trouble at the company? Yeah, he says. Don't know much about the new boss, young guy, but the fix is on. Kind of tight ass, he adds. You know what I mean? Laughs. Maybe I should fix him up with my sister. That'd fix him but good. I give him a playful slap and tell him, I'll fix you, mister. He says, that might fix me right up. Lay it on. I slide my arm around his neck, pull him in, breathe in his ear, and murmur, sure, I was just fixing to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David Galef. Galef?
A pleasure.
That was wonderful. And by the way, Carrie Troutman, who was here, wonderful poet and flash fiction writer, said she came to that panel. So yay, thank you, Carrie. And nice to have you here. Okay, next I'm going to read a piece for Lynn Mundell, who when I texted her last night to say, oh, did you happen to know that there's a flash fiction reading for the issue tomorrow? She says, oh, I'm at a flash fiction retreat. So, you know, I'm just learning how to be a better writer even. So, you know, so I said I would read this for her. Now, Lynn is, along with Grant Faulkner, they edit 100-word stories. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. If you like to write 100-word, I think it's exactly 100-word. It's a really great, great site. I think it just 100-word story is a thing, and they have like a prompt every month, and you can write. So in fact, the story that I read, the jigsaw puzzle, was from a prompt. It was a picture of a jigsaw puzzle, and then that's what Roberta did with it. This is Lynn Mundell. And Lynn is co-editor of 100-Word Story and author of the flash fiction chapbook, Let Our Bodies Be Returned to Us. And after Lynn, we're going to hear from Brianna Summers. Okay. Lynn Mundell. My mother's sighs whipped my braids around my head, accelerated our airplane over the Pacific, capsizing fishing boats, beaching migrating whales, raising mountainous waves that buried the bronze surfers, minding their own business in pastel-colored Speedos before my mother's Category 5 sighs collected in her belly, building, forced up into her chest, her throat, her cheeks, hurling us home, where they flattened the high-low shag carpeting, then off to the parent-teacher conference to lift Mrs. Poma's eyebrows, then whistling down DMV, bakery, library, bank queries before blowing through years of dog beatings, family reunions, perm appointments, dishwasher unloadings, school band performances, deep dissatisfied, disgruntled, across time immemorial, until my sons out late forget their house keys. The package is returned damaged. The neck shrivels like an old celery stalk. The plane ride is interminable, and the sighs grow and escape. Only I am the sire, and my mother's long gusts of disenchantment are just one more reason among so many for my own. Lynn Mundell, and I do believe that's a one-sentence story, another one-sentence story. They're really kind of fun. I highly recommend them, you know, but you're out of breath when you read them. So it's Lynn Mundell. Okay, next we're going to hear from Brianna Summers. Brianna Summers is a recent graduate from the University of Missouri. She received a BA in 21st Century Literature, Creative Writing, and an associate's degree in Ancient Mediterranean Studies. She enjoys reading more than writing, but wants to improve both skills in her professional context. Brianna Summers.
Hi, thank you. In between applying for job applications, I've been sending out some of my flash poetry. So thank you, SoFloPoJo, for publishing my first piece. This one is called The End of a Friendship, which is my only one I'll be reading tonight. I remember walking down the sidewalk from the apartment building where we were babysitting. I remember throwing my bag in the hair bows we made in the back of the truck. I remember opening the driver's side door and seeing you swing into the passenger seat. Every time you grab the handle to propel yourself up and place your cheer bag between your feet. I remember laughing and feeling giddy from the newfound freedom we received and straining against the tether still holding us. I remember taking a while to get myself into the driver's seat and you heckling me to hurry up. I remember molding myself into the seat and you grabbing my phone to blast Beyonce, the first song to our playlist. I remember grabbing the steering wheel, the cold chills down my back, and you snatching the last sip of my soda. I remember thinking how awesome it was that I found a best friend and hoping that I was yours. I remember driving out of the parking lot, then my memory going gray and fading to black when we hit the first stoplight. I imagine we are cool and calm when the semi clips the corner of the truck. I imagine I pretend to be in control as I lose all control. I imagine we lock eyes with the understanding that nothing will be the same again. I imagine the truck spinning and flipping front over end until we end in the ditch. I imagine when it's over, we are hanging upside down in our cocoon we just created. You call out my name. I know I don't answer. I remember you crawling through the window, or I imagine you crawling through the window, but turning around to grab your bag because I was with you the day you bought it. I imagine you grabbing it for a keepsake to have a physical scar because you were saved from them. I imagine you sitting on the side of the road with your back to the truck, waiting for help. I imagine you not calling my name again because you're marking this moment, agonizing over what comes next. I imagine for the last time you sitting by yourself in the silence, waiting.
Thank you, Brianna Summers. That was very powerful. And I love, and I saw some people said this in the chat too, how you go from the I remember refrain, the repetition to the imagine repetition. It's very powerful. I remember thinking that when I was reading it. You know, it's kind of a funny thing, and I'm hearing it even more so in the reading. All these stories kind of like are magnetizing to each other somehow. There's like so many themes that are just kind of, you know, and they're just pulling towards each other, and it's like kind of a magic, I think, you know, that just happens. You know, it just happens. So thank you very much, Brianna, for that wonderful story and the wonderful reading. Next, I'm going to be reading for Robert Scotellaro, and then we'll hear from, I don't think, an Edie Meade. After that, I don't think Todd Clay Stewart is here. I don't see him, but he can let us know if he is. Then Gary Fincke, and then Brad Rose. And then we might have time for just a little pop-up reader who asked me if he could read Christopher Bogart. Okay, and then, you know, hope everybody's having a good time. So I know I am. I'm having a ball. Okay, so I'm going to read just a couple of stories. Thank you. I'm going to read a couple of stories from Robert Scotellaro, affectionately known as Scotty, who's here. He's here, but he likes it when I read his stories. So we'll do that. Robert Scotellaro's work has been included in W.W. Norton's Flash Fiction International and Flash Fiction America, which is coming up. That's the new Norton anthology that's coming up in February. Best Small Fictions 2016, 2017, 2021. Best Microfictions 2020 and elsewhere. He's the author of 8 chapbooks and 6 flash story collections. He has, with James Thomas, co-edited new micro-exceptionally short fictions published by W.W. Norton and Company. So like the last Norton anthology, the last flash fiction Norton anthology, he was co-editor. Just wanted to make that very clear. And he lives in San Francisco. You can visit him at robertscotellaro.com. And, you know, if you talk about triptychs, he's had a book of just all triptychs. Wonderful, wonderful. Just a flash fiction master. Just delightful to have him. And I'm going to read two of his stories that he said he has in the issue. First, the Misfits. She didn't wear makeup, was beautiful without it, and it was for clowns and dead people. We were smoking cigarettes with our backs across against the high red diner seats, back when they'd let you. She was the freaky kid in school that didn't fit in, and I was her only friend. She was the only one who'd listened to my poetry. Her kisses were wild, but she spoke softly, told me she believed in alien abductions, that they took her uncle. But everyone knew her uncle crossed the wrong people in a drug deal and was under a bunch of leaves somewhere in the woods. She listened to my poetry, and I listened to her thoughts on extraterrestrial thievery, and that seemed to work for us. We laughed a lot, and I didn't mind the tattoo spider crawling out of her blouse, or the shoeless footsie she was playing up my thigh, or the dirty looks the waitress was giving us, clutching her pad and holding up her pencil like it was the friggin' torch and she was the Statue of Liberty, like she was all that. That's the first one. The second one, yeah, count on it. I'm in a fat Elvis band, the older Elvis, pot-bellied in those glittery jumpsuits. My girlfriend Reva just broke up with me for a guy in a skinny Johnny Cash band. He told me before she left, you want something you can count on? Get an abacus. I guess it put a lot more twang in my guitar, that breakup, because a cutie pie from the lit up Lady Gaga band and me have been seeing each other plenty. She says she loves the way I curl my lip at that crazy, sexy angle, and the jumpsuits don't hurt either. Sometimes when it's real quiet, late at night when she's asleep, I use the abacus just to hear the beads tap together. Robert Scotellaro, and you could read the other stories in the issue, and it's wonderful, wonderful. Robert Scotellaro. Okay. Next up, we're going to hear from Edie Meade. She's a writer and the mother of 4 in Huntington, West Virginia. Recent and forthcoming work can be found in Alice and Atlas, Feral, Still, the Journal, New Flash Fiction Review, and elsewhere, all good journals. Say hi on Twitter at Edie Meade or ediemeade.com. And if you want to put that in the chat afterwards. Edie Meade, take it away.
Thanks. I'd like to read 2 little pieces if I can. I didn't even know I could do that. I'm sort of a newbie as far as reading stuff, so I'm blown away by everybody's pieces. I think I'm just too emotional. I'm like on the verge of tears or whatever for everybody. So good. Okay, the first one I'm going to read was in the South Florida Poetry Journal, and it's called On the Pier. The angler catches an amberjack as large as our children. He holds it up to fish-eyed phone lenses, gripping it by the gills, still gasping away a life. A moment of triumph in this old man's day. He's battened down with compression socks, billowing red windbreaker tucked into belted shorts, a hat with ear flaps for a day colder than this one has become. I think, where's his wife? What grief dressed him so in the dark? Men like that make me sad, I tell my husband. Oh, he's all right, he snaps. He's doing what he loves. I remind myself to leave the feelings of men alone. Stop blaming imaginary and possibly dead wives for their behavior. We're hot and the pier is long. The angler drops the amberjack onto the planks and the crowd flanges in, sucking air. A beaded blood curtain unrolls over its sharp, pale flesh. From what injury? No one asks. The kids are grave, curious, angling between the legs of strangers to steal the look at the pooling blood. We stroll on, the old man abandoned in dwindling eddies of wonder. At the end of the pier, I wipe bait debris away from an empty bench and sit the children down for their snacks. Strawberries bigger than their fists, limp peanut butter sandwiches. Globules of grape jelly escape between the ribs of bread crust. All around us, men reenact the angler's catch like it was their own. Did you get a load of that fish? Good eating. Did you see how big? I saw him reel it in. Backs arched to battle ghost amberjacks with ghost poles. How big, I think. Men marvel at how big, but never how old a creature must be. I frown, no appetite. My husband takes my hand without understanding why. Thanks for taking care of us, he says, nodding at the lunch cooler. He owns no fishing gear, and for that I am grateful. Someday he will be old, maybe a widower, and I do hope he does what he loves. I do, even if it involves a hat with ear flaps on a hot day. We smile at one another about very different things, or perhaps not. Replenished, the children run ahead of us back down the pier, their sandaled feet pounding directly through the amberjack's gore. The angler is already gone. And there's that one. And that was more or less a nonfiction piece, in case you couldn't tell. And the next one is also a nonfiction flash. It was in Macro Mike recently, and it's called Quarry Light. Limestone country, where the quarry growls in heat thunder over the fields. We're driving to find the place Dad wanted his ashes interred. Tonight, Mark and I bring the boys to a cabin so quiet we can hear the electric lines of the high pylons hum through the easement. We take a creek bed for our evening walk. Limestone bears fossils and slips of gray clay, May-apples, mint, and touch-me-nots alive with damselflies. I know them like old friends, comfortable even decades later because they represent the nothing times, those stick-digging days when little needed to be said. At nightfall, we walk back to the cabin along an access road white with crushed gravel. The kids rush through puddles made by over-payload dump trucks. Frogs hop out ahead, unafraid. None of us are afraid, somehow, out here. Quarry light brings a lingering, thick sunset, and I realize how much beauty there is in this silicosis sky I took for granted as a child. The slate is also like an old friend, or I suppose a parent. Steady, silent, illness hidden in plain sight. All this dust, and now Dad is dust too, wanting only for reunification. Lulled by the heat and novelty of the cabin loft, the kids drift into an easy sleep. On the porch, Mark and I talk over the nothings of the day and of death, which is a different kind of nothing. The heat thunder gives way to the truth of real thunder from an anvil head flashing milky electric purple over the woods. We do not know how or whether to tell our children their grandfather has died. Could they already know? Do we have to tell them soon? Mark presses gently on my own grief, the denial I'm still holding to my chest. Then he uncaps a beer for me. The boys are still so young. Perhaps they'll come to understand Granddad's death in their own way, by discovering the absence, his name unmentioned, his chair empty. The power lines buzz. We glance in periodically at the crowns of the boys' heads to see if they stir from the approaching storm, but it seems instead to deepen their peace. And so we drink our beers and go on with our nothings, and out on the road, the frogs raise a din, and hard rain collects on the dust in the air to quiet them. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Edie. Those are both CNF pieces. It's like, it's kind of stunning to hear something that's true told in such, lyrical beautiful language like that. It's just like really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hard to read.
Yeah, I could tell, and we were feeling for you. So yeah, but thank you very much, Edie. We have 2 readers left, 2 powerhouse readers. The first being Gary Fincke. Gary Fincke's latest collection is Nothing Falls from Nowhere, Stephen F. Austin, 2021. His Flash, which is very good, by the way. His Flash stories are up recently at Craft, Wigleaf, Atticus Review, Pithead Chapel, Flash Boulevard, and Best Small Fictions 2020. He is co-editor of the annual anthology series, Best Microfiction. Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Fincke.
Thanks, Francine. I gotta do something special then, right? I'm going to first put on these reading glasses so I can see this. I'm going to read something that's really short, and then I'll read the piece that's in the journal. There's actually 3 versions of this story. I'm going to read you the short one. And then there's one that's about twice as long, and then there's one, this is one of those ones that became a full-length story. And you don't want to hear the 18-page version here. That would be a real powerhouse effort, right? Anyway, this is how that story began, which is called After the Great War, the Future is Furious. All the fathers but the boys have souvenirs from the war, helmets, guns, a bayonet etched sometimes in German, Italian, or the strange, unknowable Japanese. One father has shrapnel on his back. One flings a quick, open hand for failures. One shakes with what the boy's mother calls the palsy, keeping bottles in his garage and car. All of them carry cigarettes in their hands and depend upon blasphemy for speech. Though the boy often dreams of them, their apartment has none of those things. Not whiskey, not even the cigarettes and curses. Year by year, his father stays silent, vanished beneath a distant sealed door. Because their fathers say never, the boys who live nearby point those foreign guns at each other. Because whoever had fired them is dead, they tumble, quiver, and lie still. Because the boy has no weapon except stealth, he becomes a traitor they execute. Okay, and this is what appears in the current journal. Thanks, Francine. It's called The Theory of Dog Shit. And 12-year-olds, you know, I did this once or twice. It was somebody else's idea, but sort of a compulsive voyeur, I think, is how you become a writer. When you're 12 or 13, it's a terrible age, isn't it? I don't know. It wasn't any fun when I was 12 or 13. It wasn't any fun when my kids were 12 and 13. And it wasn't any fun when my grandchildren were 12 or 13. But we're all past that. The Theory of Dog Shit. After I moved to Waverly during 7th grade, old man Kraus was one of those guys my new best friend Charlie West and I hated, because he came outside to curse at us when a foul ball from our makeshift field across the street rolled into his yard, especially because he hid once behind his shrubbery and leapt out to pounce on a still rolling softball, refusing to return it. The next afternoon, Charlie West explained the theory of dog shit, how a burning bag full would draw old man Kraus to his front porch to stomp the fire while we watched happily from a safely distant shadow. Cool, I said. It seemed like such a great idea that the next weekend I watched Charlie scoop a week's worth of his golden retriever's dog turds into a paper sack, then stood beside him in the April darkness, while we lit the bag and rang old man Krause's bell. Holding our breath because we were so close, we crouched on the street side of the same thick shrubbery Krause had used earlier in the week. But when Krause flung open the door, he didn't stomp on the fire. He just yelled, I know what this is, and I know who you are. I know your fathers too. Old man Krause didn't get his shoes covered in warm dog shit, but I smiled. He couldn't possibly know my father because my mother and I and my sister had moved to Waverly without him. Charlie grinned too, because he knew that Steve Torok and Matt Kupchak were the two boys our age who lived on old man Krause's street, not a quarter mile away like he and I did, coming to that vacant lot just for softball. They'd be surprised when the phone rang in their houses, old man Krause accusing them of minor crime. They'll get grounded, Charlie said as we walked to our houses. They'll be sitting in their rooms next Saturday while we burn more bags of shit. And we did, testing the theory of dog shit on half a dozen enemy houses. Not once did a woman or a child answer the door, only men, all of them someone we imagined we would hate just as much as old man Krause because their children bothered us somehow. Like the father of a boy who made fun of me when I'd moved to Waverly. Like the father of the boy who called us homos because we were always together. Like the father of a girl who at the Valentine's Day semi-formal told Charlie to get lost even before he asked her to dance. Like, at last, a house where we didn't know anybody because neither of us wanted to waste our last turd-filled bag, and we were sure we'd hate at least one person who lived there. But though half of the men cursed into the darkness, launching great obscenities of anger, and two walked to the edge of their lawns to peer into the darkness, and one frightened us into sprinting away by charging directly toward where we were hiding. Not once did the man who answered the door step on the bag of shit, as if every man had already tested the theory of dog shit and found it flawed, as if that idea failed serious, prolonged examination. It was a myth, not science, not something any boy could replicate just by wishing it so. Thanks.
Wonderful, Gary Fincke. That was really awesome. To close us out, we're going to hear from Brad Rose. Brad Rose was born and raised in Los Angeles and lives in Boston. He is the author of 3 collections of poetry and flash fiction, Pink X-Ray, Detonations, and Momentary Turbulence. 2 new books of prose poems, Word and Edgewise and No Wait I Can Explain, are forthcoming in 2022, which is now. I think No Wait I Can Explain is already out, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it just came out. Thanks. Thank you.
His website is bradrosepoetry.com. Selected readings are available at Brad Rose Poetry. And please, I urge you to put your links in the chat so we can, so ladies and gentlemen, Brad Rose.
Thanks very much, Francine. I would like to pass after hearing all these unbelievably good writers. This is just really pretty amazing. So I won't pass, but I ask for your indulgence. I'm going to read 3 pieces, each of which is a paragraph long, and these are in the number 26 of the journal. The first one's called My Blue Period. I'm a nano influencer. Big things come in tall packages. Nevertheless, I don't want too much of a good thing now that fire season lasts all year round. In fact, I've canceled my swimming lessons and started playing miniature golf big time. Still, I wish the ions would stop being so negative. I'm very suggestible. Loretta said whenever someone asks, "How are you, Miles?" it's simply a greeting. It's not a question about my health. She thinks she's so smart. I took out my own appendix in 15 minutes. That was back in my blue period, right before I staunched the bleeding. As I've demonstrated many times, achieving your goals is never impossible, especially if you've got a positive attitude and a well-stropped scalpel. Admittedly, some people can't see the forest for the leaves, but once in a while, it's pleasant to get a jump start on deja vu, even if it means there's no going back. Like they say, tomorrow is another day. I'll be sure to mention that in my clemency letter to the governor. Next piece is called, "I'm Afraid It Couldn't Be Helped." Sometimes I'm bees, a whole swarm, I swear. This time of year, the triangles are beautiful, aren't they? Thanks to their razor-sharp angles and their three main points. Now, despite the artificial hypnotism, I'm able to go faster and faster. It's about time because today is everybody's birthday, although I can't be certain whose side they're on. Have you ever seen so many bad drivers? Who programs the ants anyway? Of course, there's never enough music to go around. Otherwise, it's just like regular office hours. In fact, what a pleasant surprise. I was just thinking about someone like you. Even when the darkness hangs like blood in the air and the bitter minutes clench their rabid teeth, there are two ends to every tunnel. I'd like to apologize about the hostages and for setting the fire, but. Last one is called The Verdict. I would have started my ego trip sooner, but I was short-staffed. Like Uncle Sigmund used to say, a cigar is just an engorged cigarette. Now he's doing time in the minimum security prison for a defamation of character. Isn't that a lovely garden of nostrums, although they look rather colorless for this time of year? A dose of bromide would bring out their best. Naturally, it's better to live than to let live. This week, I didn't win the lottery, not even once. Mabel says all's fair in love and war, but I want to get the ball rolling in a businesslike manner, so let's cut to the chase and cut out all this mumbo jumbo. Is that your natural hair? It looks so mid-century modern. The tail fins are the perfect denouement, especially if you like Venusian food. In fact, some might say that they're genre bending, but life is nasty, brutish, and short, even when you're living on a whole other platitude. Because the algorithms already know what I'm going to say tomorrow, I'm going to re-rehearse my spontaneity. Of course, it won't be the first time, so I'll be back to square one, just until I get the hang of it. Until then, heads will roll, at least until the verdict is in. Don't worry, I'll save you a seat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brad Rose. Well, this has been a wonderful night, and it's all because of you guys. You know, like you brought such wonderful work, such wonderful voices. I couldn't have asked for more. So thank you. So just one more time, and I'll ask you to take yourself off mute in a second. Svi Sesling, Celesté Cosme, Kevin Howley, Mickey Revenaugh, Candace Hartsuyker, David Galef, reading from Lynn Mundell, Brianna Summers, who that was her first publication. Oh my God. Robert Scotellaro, Scotty, Edie Meade, Gary Fincke, and Brad Rose. You're all beautiful. Please take yourselves off mute and give yourselves applause. And
All right.
yeah, and thank you to the people who came to listen. How wonderful of you. Oh my God, it's just wonderful. So thank you all. I hope you will all continue to submit and follow each other on Twitter. That's so great. Like to just like stalk each other a little bit. Find each other's names and just look on Twitter and follow each other. It's just really great. And till next time, till our next issue launch, and please feel free to submit again, and see you soon. Good
Bye,
night.
everybody. Bye.
Francine,